Hi guys, my name is Christine, and today I'm talking about God realization, the key to manifesting. So, this is something that I've been wanting to start discussing for a long time. I've been procrastinating on it because it's one of those very humbling topics that makes you think, who am I to really be discussing this sort of thing? But because you may not know this if you've been following me for a long time, especially if you've been on my other channels as well. But I'm actually a very spiritual person. I love meditating. I love, reading about these kinds of topics, practicing these kinds of topics. So I wanted to start discussing this sort of thing because I really do feel like this is my next step in my own evolution. And one of the greatest ways that you can personally learn something is if you start teaching it and you start talking about it. So that's something that I recommend you do. If there's a topic that you are really, really interested in, then I recommend that you start writing about that topic or you start teaching it in some way. It could be just like this, like via a YouTube video, talking to the ether, right, and discussing this sort of thing. So I want to talk about God realization. So I'll tell you exactly what that means in a very, very short moment. Okay. So one of the things that we have in common with God, one of the things that we have in common with the universe, it doesn't really matter what you call this omnipresent force that a lot of us have religions connected to and things like that. But one of the cool things about God, the universe, is that it creates, right? It creates everything around us. It creates the trees, it creates the stars, it makes your hair grow, it makes your fingernails grow. It determined the color of your eye before you even came into existence, right? So it creates. But the cool thing about humans is that we are also creators. In a way, we're kind of like these little mini versions of God because we can create our own reality. For example, you can apply for a job that you want. You can go to university and study any kind of topic that you want. You create and design the life around you. You can pick who you want to marry, who you want to spend your life with. You can choose if you want to have children or not. So as you can see, we are creators. And if you look around your room right now, if you're looking at this through a smartphone, someone created this, someone designed this, and then it manifested by the workings of how people create these things. They get the companies, they get the designers, and then they get the manufacturers that actually create the product. So all these things are done by humans, and we therefore are creators. And that's the only thing that we really have in common with this great force out there, this great source of there which we all originated from. So I've been researching God and whatever it is there that creates all this stuff. And from one of the ways that I did this was actually through going and looking through and watching videos on near-death experiences, NDE accounts. And one of the things that you mostly see, like throughout, like let's say like 9 times out of 10, when people are talking about being on the other side and being with God, they describe it as unconditional love. That's something that they all say that they feel and they sense. When they go through the light, basically they may see some of their relatives, but then they get awashed with this overwhelming sense of unconditional love, this energy that is just pure unconditional love. So therefore, this must be like what God is. God must be this unconditional love. I mean, that's really that we have to go on. I mean, there's a lot of things from the Bible and all sorts of different scriptures that say that God is love and things like that. So if God is love and he is this or she is just this unconditional loving force, then if we want to be God realized and to be able to manifest what we want and create like what God in a way that God creates, be like God, or what the universe is like, then we also need to be unconditionally loving. Okay, so that means being unconditionally loving in what you do. So what you do day in, day out, just do it in a loving way. And also, when we are interacting with other people, loving people unconditionally, including our enemies. One of the famous quotes from the Bible is to love thy neighbor, right? And that also goes for your enemies as well, people that you don't like, people that get on your nerves. You know, if you don't, I'm not saying you need to be best buddies with them, but it might be good to just send them like a silent blessing in your head or something like that, rather than hating on them and gossiping about them. You know, you're not being godlike, you're not being God realized if you are behaving in that way. You've got to be able to have unconditional love for everybody, which is difficult, but it's part of that spiritual practice and to become God realized. So, another thing as well is that you also have to be unconditionally loving to yourself, which may be the most difficult for some people. I know it sometimes is for me, like especially if you make a mistake. Like recently I made a mistake on one of my YouTube videos on my other channel. I didn't basically go through it after I edited it, and there was something at the beginning there I had to like, which I couldn't cut out basically, so I had to delete the video. But it was up on YouTube for like a good 12 to like maybe nearly 24 hours. It was up there basically, right? And it was it was kind of embarrassing because it had been up there for a while and nearly over 900 people had viewed it, so they'd obviously seen my mistake. Which, obviously these things happen and it was probably really fun for them to watch. But, for the moment it happened, I was like, oh no, I could feel my face going red. I got embarrassed by it. And then you think, oh God, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I rewatch the video and to make sure there was no mistakes? But it's one of those things that happen. So sometimes it can be really difficult to be unconditionally loving towards yourself, right? So you need to be unconditionally loving in what you do, in the way you do things, right? And you have to be unconditionally loving to other people and also to yourself, okay? So that's one way that you can become God realized. And if you do that sort of thing, it's then much easier to manifest the things that you want in this world, okay? So one of the books that I've been reading and studying a lot recently is Wishes Fulfilled by Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And he says, this is paraphrasing, but imagine what you would feel like if you manifested whatever it is that you wanted to manifest. If you could imagine what it would be like to actually have the thing that you want in your life, and to basically surround that image and to feel that unconditional love, okay? Because when you do that, that is your way of essentially creating like how God creates and becoming that God realized self. So if you can have that unconditional love, because one of the things that I read in that book was if you have any feelings of condemnation, of judgment towards any of God's children, that means everybody, if you have any sort of those feelings to anyone, then it's very unlikely that your dreams will actually come true and that the thing that you want to manifest will manifest. You've got to come from this very unconditionally loving place. If you've got any sort of enmity, any sort of like harsh feelings towards other people, you need to start practicing unconditional love towards everybody. And if you do that, the things that you're hoping to materialize, the things that you're hoping to manifest into your life will start working for you and things will start falling into place. So one of the things that I love listening to that really puts me in that state of mind of like unconditional loving, first is I read Wishes Fulfilled by Dr. Wayne Dyer because that really puts me in the right headspace. Meditating as well can also help. If you just imagine the people in your life just surrounded by a really loving light, something like that really helps as well. That helps me at least. And it helps me practice unconditional love. Obviously, the best way to practice it is actually when you're actually with people physically as well. So that's really cool. It's a cool little practice that you can do. And also, there's an audio recording that I love of Wayne Dyer's. I think you can find it here on YouTube. And it's called Staying on the Path. So if you just type in Wayne Dyer, Staying on the Path, it should come up for you. It's like about an hour long. But that's something else that I like to listen to that really puts me in that great state of mind. I remember listening to that and then walking to a job that I'd had a while ago. And I remember just having the most peaceful and serene walk to work after listening to that. And there was a couple of occasions where it's like really like magical experiences. Like I bumped into two different old ladies. The first one, she was like all dressed in blue. She looked like she was perhaps like from Pakistan or something like that. She was brown. And you know, I walked past her and I asked her if she was okay, and she gave me this warm smile. You know, she was quite old. She looked like she must have been in her 80s or something. And she gave me this warm smile and she said, "Oh, I'm okay. Thank you for asking." And it was so sweet. And then when I was waiting at a bus stop, another old lady went by me. She was with her carer. At least that's what it looked like. It could have been her daughter. And she was in a wheelchair, and she was walking by. Well, she was in the wheelchair, so she was being pushed along. The lady who was pushing it was walking by. And I said, "Hi, how are you?" I just said something like that. I just reached out to her. I didn't reach out to her physically, but I just said, "Hey, how are you?" And she just smiled at me. And then the lady who was pushing her said, "Oh, look, I told you we'd bump into some nice people today." You know, she said something along those lines. But it was just like a really magical experience. And it was all from, like, because before I left the house, I'd been listening to Staying on the Path by Wayne Dyer. And it put me in a really serene, very unconditionally loving mood. And it just, like, all these lovely experiences just happened. And it really uplifted my mood. I hope I managed to uplift these two old ladies' moods as well. And it was just really really nice and really sweet. And that's what I believe, is the state which will help us become more God realized if we practice from that place. So that's my thoughts on that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, it's my first time speaking about this kind of stuff, but it's something that I'm hoping to continue to do over the months and the years and the weeks as well. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye.